guest tonight is filmmaker and DJ Jon Bling. Jon's filmmaking projects have included short films and numerous music videos, but it's his 2016 feature film debut that has captured international attention. Titled Never Forget, the film is based on Jon's personal journey back to his homeland, Vietnam. It was nominated for Best Film and won Best Actor for its main star, Tâm Định, at the Viet Film Fest 2016 in Los Angeles. Other festivals include the Chicago Multicultural Film Festival, Auckland International Film Festival, and Cebu International Film Festival, where it also won Best Cinematography. The Australian premiere is scheduled to be at Sanctuary Cove Film Festival in November. Jon Bling,
yes.
Welcome to Full Story.
Full Story, great to be here.
So you are a film director and DJ, and these two occupations are arguably quite hard to get into. So
yes.
Where did your first passion for music and movies begin?
Well, it started about close to 15, 16 years ago. I actually was doing more film and theatre back in high school. So I started doing theatre first with like actors and training with them. Like the way the story goes is that I assistant directed the school play when I was like, 14, 15, I directed it. And then at 16, they wouldn't let me direct it because it was interfering with my year 12 studies and I proved them wrong. And then after that, I went, you know what, how about I just, write you one? And then after that, I tried to get into, did a couple of like courses here and there with digital filmmaking. This is back in the year 2001, so digital filmmaking never even happened. And then when that didn't work out, I decided to just, take a weekend job, which was DJing, and then that's still going to this day. Which, funny enough, thinking about it now, when I was DJing, I sort of stopped with the film, and then now it actually builds up both, if you know what I mean. Like one would have helped the other without doing it. So I kind of thought to myself, well, I thought I was wasting my time back then, but it actually brought me to where I am now. So I'm really grateful for that.
It supplements each other.
Yes, exactly.
Before we talk about those two career paths that you chose, let's talk about how you grew up in Australia.
Yep.
Did you identify yourself as a Vietnamese Australian growing up?
Well, at the very beginning, we stayed in Westall, which is right next to Springvale, the hub of the southeast of Vietnamese. And, it was a typical childhood Vietnamese Australian, just I had a normal, I didn't know what was going on, didn't really learn about the history of Vietnam until about, I reckon about 5-7 years ago when everything just started coming up. But it only hit me when my parents decided to move away from the area to a predominantly I wouldn't say like a richer area, but I would just say like it's more of a non-Asian suburbs, Chadstone. And I then identified that how different the world was comparing from going from a school with a lot of Asians to a Vietnamese to a school with only one, and that was me. And it was just, and I didn't see anything different. Looking back, I still didn't see anything different until it actually got into the world of after uni and stuff, was when I actually, okay, maybe there was a bit of segregation, racial thing here and there, but it never really occurred to me. I just had a normal childhood.
Are you the only child, or do you have siblings?
I have an older brother, okay. And he's got his own family now. So I think it was more tougher for him because he was the oldest and he had to look after me, and he had to follow the traditional Vietnamese values. But for me, it was very thinking about it, being a DJ and a filmmaker, I got away with a lot of stuff.
How did your parents feel though, you choosing the career path of filmmaking and DJing?
Well, it didn't, as typical Vietnamese parents, they were very unhappy with it, but I did try to please them with other career paths such as marketing and also a bit of law here and there, but nothing really they could see that after hours, and when I wasn't working on that study, I was still doing this stuff, and they finally just went, you know what, just let him do his thing and see what happens. And then they saw it and they were like, oh, this guy's pretty serious. And then awards started happening, and then money started coming in, and I was like, whoa, okay, I think he's a bit serious about it right now. It was only when about 2007, when I was doing film again, but I hadn't actually got the qualification. And then when I decided to leave home and move to Sydney for a year and a half to get my qualification, that was probably when they decided, hey, this is pretty serious, like, you know, let him do his thing, and then we'll move on from there and see where it goes.
So in 2010, you went to Vietnam.
Yes.
Was that the first time that you went to Vietnam?
Yes.
Or did you go before?
It was the first time I ever been back to Vietnam, and it was the first time my parents, especially my dad, the first time he had been back since the actual war. See, my parents, they were actually one of the original boat people that fled to Australia when the whole thing happened, and they had never any collection of coming back until only recently, which was 2010. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, you should come with, my dad was like, you should come with me just to check it out and just see how you feel. And when I went back, it just blew my mind. Like, I've been to like Thailand, I've been to Hong Kong, but something about Vietnam, just seeing even though I'd never been there, but I can feel like the memories just coming back. Like my dad will be like, this is where your brother was born, or this is where we used to hang out and stuff. And I'll be like, whoa, like I've never been there before, but I feel it, like, you know, and that's kind of like what transcended me to start the whole project from that moment onwards.
So you just mentioned that your parents were one of the first boat people to arrive in Australia.
Yeah.
Did they try to impart any culture, traditions towards you when you grew up?
Oh yeah, definitely. Just the typical Vietnamese Australian like households. We only hanged out with Vietnamese. I hanged out with our cousins. We used to go to Footscray a lot to meet my other cousins, so we had a choice between Springvale and Footscray, and luckily we chose Springvale. But we used to it was always just doing like the same thing every, like, you know, week in, week out. And then when we finally moved away, that's when, you know, we were really on our own. Like, it was always there, but we never really felt like, you know, like this is like, oh, this is really tough now. And that was only like 8 years later, after we just left like Springvale and Wistall. But yeah, the values were there.
What was surprising to you when you went back to Vietnam?
Just the way everything was still intact, and the way people, because from my parents' point of view, they were pushed out, and that's why we're here. Like, if it wasn't for them, I would not be sitting here with you. But when we go back to Vietnam, it was kind of like they were almost welcoming us back, but at the same time, I was so Australianized to the point where I was like, I still felt like a tourist, even though I look Vietnamese. My dad, he will always be Vietnamese. But I'm just saying, like, when I went back, I just didn't feel right back in. I felt like, oh, I just want to go back to Australia, you know. But at the same time, seeing everything, like everything from like the rice fields, from where my parents grew up to where they stayed just before they fled, it was truly amazing. Like some of the stuff, like I tried to, like, you know, just to capture everything, just to, you know, everything in my head.
We'll talk about that in relation to the latest feature film,
yeah.
Never Forget, which you based your story on your experience in Vietnam.
Yeah.
What kind of challenges did you face being a Vietnamese Australian growing up? Was language a problematic?
Not really. Well, language probably at home, like speaking to my parents in Vietnamese and then learning English at the same time, speaking that at school, and then slowly, like, you know, thinking about it now, like we had like Vietnamese school on like Saturdays and all that stuff, and I always used to muck around. I never used to do that stuff, but thinking about it now, like I reckon should have taken that more seriously. But then if you really want to learn Vietnamese or relearn it again, just go to Vietnam for 6 months and you'll get it back like that. It got me back. I was there for the first time, like 8 weeks, and I relearned everything. Pretty much. I thought I was good.
So you can speak
kind of, but then
a bit of Vietnamese now?
Yeah, but now going back to Australia, you just lose it all. So,
no one to talk to.
Yeah, there's no one to talk to. Exactly.
Okay. We'll talk about your two career paths. What was the pivotal moment, really, when you decided, I want to do DJ?
To be honest, it just started as a weekend job. Like, we were 18, 17, 18, we would go clubbing, and I never really liked to drink. I never really liked to do the, you know, everyone was doing drugs, everyone was drinking. I never really liked, you know, doing all that. And then I always noticed like the DJ, and they always like, you know, controlling the crowd. As every typical history DJ, they'll say, oh, we had music from the beginning and we just wanted to see how the DJ controls the crowd. But, you know, when I saw that happen at the clubs, I was like very interested in it. And then I just slowly I already had a big music collection, and I just wanted to learn the basics of it from doing like a lot of mini house parties, and then moving up to like, I joined a DJ company that did only weddings. So I learned how to do weddings from the get-go, and I learned like the basics. And it only hit me when about 2002, when I think it was like it was one of those promotional things where if I bring like 10 people, they'll let me DJ at a club. And I did that, and it was like even though it was like early set, no one was there. It was still one of the best like events I've ever been to. So that's when it finally like, you know what, this is pretty cool. I can try to do it for the next couple of years and see what happens, and still doing it.
Let's not ignore the fact that you're quite a well-known DJ. What's the secret to your success?
It's just pretty much same as from DJing to filmmaking. You just got to meet a lot of people. You got to like talk to them, see where they are. And like, it took me, I was DJing in very, very like pubs and stuff. It took me a good year and a half to meet people to finally get my first gig. And that only happened by accident. And the same thing happened with filmmaking as well. Like, it took 2 years, 3 years to write the first script. And only when I started meeting people and people started helping me along with jobs and stuff, did I finally just, you know, let's put this project together and see how it goes from there. So to me, it's, well, learn your craft first, everyone knows that. But the stuff that you can't learn, you just need to just go out there. Like, you need to be like out there. You need to separate yourself from the rest. Like, what is going to make you different from that person? Because there's a million people behind me ready to DJ or ready to make a movie, and I just based it on like just meeting people and just being myself mostly. And you know, some people can be like that and some people can't be like that.
Were you always as open and unafraid to speak your mind back then as you are now? Or was that also something?
I think back then a lot more, because I had nothing to lose and I hadn't done anything yet, and I was just coming up in the industry. But these days I'm just now more observant, helping out the little guys more, and just, you know, doing what I can just to, you know, stay ahead, but also be like, there are people who have been DJing way longer than me, and they're more humble than me, and like, and I follow in their footsteps, and then I try to do that for the little guys.
So you would have started off small before you began making feature movies.
Yeah.
How did you begin making short films?
Well, it started back in like basically in high school days. We used to do like short films and stuff, and they used to just have a camera there, and I was the only one borrowing it, so, you know, I always kept it. But then when I started doing film school, they were just projecting the idea of more short films, and then after that I did a couple of them, tried to get into like a couple of festivals, and it worked. But then we started getting into more building it up, like with commercials, music videos. Music videos is a good way to tell a story, but without the hardcore technical stuff. And after that, I decided, you know what, let's just jump into the feature.
And what's your experience been like?
Let's just say it's a lot of music videos, and I've learned to, same thing, just dealing with people. Like actors and musicians, they're pretty much the same. They want to be, they are the face of the video, but they're also I have to be very gentle with them and just push them on the same path as me, because sometimes it can crisscross and go different ways. But then there are some that I can click with, and some you know, we worked a couple of times and goes, hey, yeah, this is the final product, and this is what I can give you.
Let's go back to being a Vietnamese Australian,
Yeah.
because that's what we're trying to learn from you.
Yeah.
How hard is it to be, especially of ethnic background, to join an occupation like DJing and filmmaking?
Well, in the DJing sense, it's okay. It was good back in the day because, and to this day as well, but it was a lot more harder, I can say, because there are a lot of like segregated nights, but you just call them Asian nights. And when they have a night just for like, you know, Vietnamese, or a night just for Chinese, and luckily I was hanging out with those kind of crowds, and they knew that I was like DJing, and then it was just word of mouth and meeting people, which was good. But in the filmmaking world, that's a totally different world. And I must say that as a Vietnamese Australian, I have to be very unique to the point where I have to separate myself from everyone just to be, you know, just to get noticed into the industry, because it's I thought the DJ industry was cutthroat, nothing compared to the filmmaking. Like I wouldn't like just looking, like it's just stressful to go from one to the other. Like you think one thing is like really easy, but then it's not for the next. It's totally two different worlds.
You said you had to set yourself apart. How did you?
Well, firstly, making the film on my own. Like normally give an example, in the DJ world, you need to start off small, work for free, meet people, build your self-name up, and then hopefully a couple of years you'll be known and you bring more people in and people will know who you are. In the filmmaking world, you need to just do something totally different from what everyone else is. Plus also the guidelines in Australia, you need a lot of guidelines, you need to fill out a lot of paperwork, the government needs to know what you're doing and stuff. I just sidestepped the whole thing and used my DJing skills, saved up, and then self-funded the whole thing. And that's probably what the interesting point out of the whole process for me was, the fact that I did everything myself. Literally myself.
Okay, so just for our viewers who might not know, we're talking about your latest movie, Never Forget.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about the story?
Never Forget is based on my trip back to Vietnam. It's a story about a young nurse. She has to go back to Vietnam to attend her dad's funeral, and along the way, she has to relearn her Vietnamese culture and stuff, because I think she lost it along the way while she was in Australia. And along the way, she meets people from her village. She learns the old cultural ways, and then she has to be true to herself in order to move on with her. To deal with her dad's death, she needs to be true to herself in order to move on.
What was the hardest part about filming this movie?
The hardest part was casting. Casting was a big one, to get the right actor for the right role, because the writing took about 1.5 years, and getting the crew together, getting the permits, getting all that stuff, the technical stuff was pretty much like on the ball, but getting the right cast, the right actress and right actor for the roles, the main roles, was one of the most hardest things we had to do. Thankfully, my co-producer Van, he found Anne, the main actress, just randomly while we were searching for totally other people. And thinking about it today, like if he had chosen other people for me to see, and if he hadn't done what he did that day, I would never have met Anne, and Anne would never have been in the film. And that would have been a big regret.
Speaking of actors, your main male actor won the award for Best Actor in the Viet Film Festival 2016. Yeah. And so what does that mean? Does that help in promoting?
That definitely helps, yes. It helps the film, because now they want to see an award-winning performance, but also Anne's also nominated at the same time, so everyone wants to see her work as well. It helps the film because, like I said, it's an award-winning film now, plus it was nominated for Best Picture. So out of 12, in there, what they were saying, 2,000 films were submitted, only 12 were selected, and only 4 got nominated out of the 12. So I'm grateful that my film got nominated. But it also helps Tom as well, because Tom, he's a first-time actor, never acted before in his life, and I brought him to Vietnam, and we did some stuff together, and now he's like just blowing up with that. Plus, also, it helps me because he's an award-winning actor now.
That's great. So how do you feel about the film industry? Is it fair or not fair?
The film industry, it's a very tough world. It's like, the best way I can describe it is, it's like in The Simpsons, the Stonecutters. If you don't know that episode, Homer wants to be in this group and he can't, but he doesn't know how. So he tries to join, and once he joins, everything works out well. But then again, I can say that about any industry, like in the world of law or the world of medical or stuff. Once you see something, you want to be a part of it. And if I'm not a part of it, like even though I made a feature film and it's still going into festivals and stuff, I still don't see myself in the industry yet. Once people start like, you know, saying, oh yeah, we know Jon Bling here, we know Jon Bling there, that's when I can start to like, you know, feel that I'm a part of it. But right now I'm still, I feel like I'm on the cusp of it. And in answer to your question, is it fair? But I feel that sometimes it is, but then sometimes it's not. Because it's, like as everyone says, it's not, you can make the best film in the world, but it's, unless you know someone who's willing to watch it, it's just an unseen film.
So how would you make that apparatus work for you, that structure, film industry work for you?
I just have to, I hate to say it, but I can't just make like a typical Australian film for the Australian public to watch, because that wouldn't be fair to the other guys, if you know what I mean. Like, I have to do a Vietnamese style, Vietnamese Australian film with Vietnamese actors, because we don't see that many around. And that's probably one of the things that separates me from everyone else. That's also to get my name out there, and also to get the film industry to take notice as well. They're like, oh, this guy, he's like making all these films with Vietnamese only actors, you know, he's trying to help out the industry by just doing that. And I feel that that's my duty to do that. Like, I don't want to make like a horror movie based on two white people, you know, that's just, you know, there's a million of them. But two Vietnamese actors stuck in a room with a chainsaw, that's a different, you don't see that every day.
Yeah.
Chờ thôi.
Why aren't you fixing it?
Cô đừng có nạt tôi. Tôi nói cô là trời nắng, trời sẽ nóng máy, cô không chịu nghe tôi. Tôi nói có chờ cô không nhớ sao?
Yeah, I fucking do remember. I remember you saying that my dad's dead.
Mấy năm trước xong nhỏ về đi.
This movie is about 90% in Vietnamese with English subtitles. Any reason why you wanted to take that kind of style?
Like I said, it hasn't been done before. And watching like your typical Vietnamese films that, you know, our parents watch and stuff, they're into the whole comedic, dramatic side. But I think it's based on the dramas from like Korea or Japan or maybe Hong Kong. And when I've shown it to like some, like my parents and stuff, and this film is like totally different to what they're used to. It's kind of like using Vietnamese Asian actors, but filmed like a French noir art house film. Like lots of like, it's not as fast paced as you would, but it's more slow and more romantic. Music is a big part of it, and like other stuff as well, just to bring it all together.
When you went back there,
Yeah.
did you have the help of anyone you knew in Vietnam to help you film that?
Well, our producer Van, he organised all the permits first. So we had a couple of permits to film in certain areas, which was great. We also had Van's family who helped us film in the actual village. So we had free reign in the village with boats and permits and filming it till late hours of the night. We couldn't actually film during the day because it was too hot. was like 45 degrees or something. But also a big part of it was my family, like the family that I had met, reconnected with. I told them that, I even said it back then, like I said that 6 years ago. I went, you know what, next time I come back, I want to shoot something. And they're like, yeah, we'll believe it when we see it. And then when I actually came back with like 20 people, they were like, oh my God, it's actually happening. And so in the film, like I used my cousin's house, we used my other cousin's bakery. I have a lot of cousins in Vietnam, it's really weird. And there were a lot of like places that I couldn't have gone unless I knew my cousin would have helped out with that. And if I hadn't had them, then I don't know what I would have done. I would have been searching a lot for looking at different things. Plus half the script as well was written based on that trip. So I'll be like, oh, I've stayed at that bakery. I want to write that bakery into the film.
So you said that you kept all these places and people and concept in mind. When you went over to Vietnam, was there anything compromised due to either financial or political situations?
They asked for a copy of the script and they had to okay it first. And luckily it's a romantic film. And there's nothing really like controversial about it other than the fact that we did shoot on like busy roads and stuff like that, but it wasn't really harmful to anyone. And it was just like your typical, like it was like as if an Australian went back to Vietnam to shoot something. Like I didn't want to like disrupt anything, but I also wanted to capture the essence of Vietnam, which was one of the main factors. I had to, there's three main characters I always say when we were filming. It was always going to be Anne, the main actress, Tom, the main actor, and Vietnam as a character as well, and making sure that Vietnam was captured as much as these two. And that's why when you watch the film, like every scene was planned to the point where if you were sitting on that street, you would see this happen right now.
So all in all, are you happy with how your movie turned out?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like it's been what, 6 years in the making, 3 years of shooting, 3 years of writing, 1 year of planning, 17 days to shoot it, and it's been a year and a half of a year of editing. And we've gone to a couple of festivals, the main one, Viet Film Fest, where we had the world premiere, market there. And pretty soon I'll hopefully get to announce the Australian premiere, which was a good thing.
You did touch on very lightly that you're working on another feature film?
Yeah. So
is that also another concept based in, related to the Vietnamese culture?
We are using Vietnamese. I probably will be using some Vietnamese actors, but not predominantly the Vietnamese tradition. I mean, in the world of Hollywood and the world of the film industry, as they say it, you always do one for you and one for them. So never forget, obviously it's for me. So this next one, like that's also just to get my name, just so you remember my name, Jon Bling. But in the next one, it's more, I see it as a more commercially viable film where a lot more of the public will be able to enjoy it more. And I always saw that as my plan, just to go one for me and one for them. Them meaning like the popcorn crazy public who will enjoy a good scare or an explosion. Same thing.
May I ask what the storyline is about?
It's a cross between, I can't say yet, but there's elements of horror, elements of sci-fi, and maybe a teenage comedy involved inside it.
Wow.
So it's a lot of genres into one, but I see it as also, the point of the film for me is, the point of the next film is it's a social, political commentary of what I think of what's wrong with today's society, especially in Australia.
Looking forward to that one.
With a lot of monsters. Okay.
And finally, is there any advice you would like to give to the younger Vietnamese generation, Vietnamese Australian generation who aspire to be filmmakers or DJs in Australia? Well,
same thing I said before with DJs, just always back yourself up, like learn the craft before you do anything stupid. Like the saying goes for both filmmaking and DJing, learn the rules so you can break them. So don't try to be a hero to go out and just do it. Learn it first, and then when someone goes up to you and goes, hey, you can't do that, and he goes, yeah, but we can do it this way, but I don't want to do it that way, I want to do it this way. And I had that theory the whole time when I shot the film, and I also had that theory the whole time when I started building up my DJ career as well. And some of the kids of today, like I've seen some of their work, like, what was it? They were at the screening, David from Flying Art Films here. Like they're doing some pretty good stuff with music videos and stuff, and I can see, and they're only 18. They're doing what I did only a couple of years ago at the age of 18. So imagine when they hit my age, they're gonna be like superstars by then.
Okay. Jon Bling, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.